Carol Roth, the author of The War on Small Business and former investment banker who started to use her gifts for the good instead of the evil, is joining me now. She's also got a new book coming out a week after mine, and they are great hand-in-glove books. You Will Own Nothing. Could the dollar get knocked off the top spot as the world's reserve currency? Challenges are emerging, and history shows that countries whose currency has dominated the globe can fall from that global reserve, that top spot, pretty fast, even over the course of a few days. We didn't luck our way into this position. Listen to me carefully. It was a carefully engineered plan that unfolded in the mountains of New Hampshire nearly 80 years ago. At the time, the British pound sterling was the international currency, a title it had held for decades. But Bretton Woods changed everything. Now, these are not my words. These are the words of NPR. They just came out with this story. The U.S. dollar conquered the world. Is it at risk of losing its top spot? I know because I've been talking about this for a long time, and everyone has said that will never happen. And I said, really? Yes, it will. And places like NPR has always called me a conspiracy theorist, even though they said that Bretton Woods was a carefully engineered plan that unfolded in the mountains of New Hampshire nearly 80 years ago. Who's the conspiracy theorist? It doesn't sound like me. It sounds like if I am NPR, you are too. But now Carol Roth is with us. Carol, now things are really starting to get serious because, as you said, we are falling 10 times the rate than we have since 2003. And countries are getting serious. Everybody always said, well, we're the worst, or we're the best of the worst. We're still bad.
Cleanest shirt in the laundry, skinniest kid at fat camp.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now the actual skinny kids are showing up at fat camp and saying, yeah, and we're just getting into shape, and we're right around the corner. And countries are moving in that direction.
So I have to tell you a little thing. A tale on your Bretton Woods, this carefully crafted strategy. One of the things I learned in researching You Will Own Nothing was from Jim Rickards. He's a fabulous economist.
Great.
He told me that, do you know who really crafted this plan? You know who was really behind this? It was Russia. That basically Harry Dexter White, who was the negotiator, he was the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, he was the negotiator for the U.S. side, that he was a Stalinist agent. And the entire plan was to knock Britain off of the pole position. That was the plan. They didn't even sign the agreement. They just hung out they were there. They hung out in the background. They didn't sign the agreement. But they put it, our U.S. Treasury Secretary, who was negotiating this, was a Stalinist agent. This has been backed up even in Vox.com. So again, not conspiracy. I have it very well cited once Jim told me, because it sounds kind of loony, but went back and did the research. And this was actually Russia's plan that created this. And the entire focus, they didn't care about the U.S. They wanted Britain out of that power position because they felt like that would make them stronger. And I say this and I share this in this discussion because I think that as history rhymes, we need to keep that in mind, that if there ends up being some sort of global, cabal that comes together or a war, that there are people who are focused on this. And right now, it's Russia, it's China courting Saudi Arabia. And we have issues not just with reserves, but also that the key piece, because you asked me this one time offline, it's not just the reserves. The reserves allow us to finance debt cheaply at the government level, right, and create some arbitrage. But really what puts us in the pole position as well is being a huge piece of the payments. We dominate, and have not lost ground, by the way, on the payment side. But China
you're talking about like the SWIFT payment system.
Global payment. So
Got it.
if you talk about Swift, so Swift is this international messaging system that basically connects the different global banks and says, okay, this is this is what's going to happen in terms of global trade. $100 trillion a month goes through Swift.
Oh my God.
And right now, China only has about just under 2.4% of that. So they are working to claw their way up. They are trying to make deals. They're trying to convince the Saudis to let everybody pay, including them, pay for oil in their currency, the yuan. And so obviously they're really kind of focused on this. There was a China Arab conference last week, the first one I think they'd been doing for 10 years. And a few things were announced. One, the Bank of China is opening its first branch in Riyadh, which is the Saudi capital. And then out of that, I got to read you this. I'm going to quote this from CNBC. Their Saudi finance minister said, Saudi Arabia and China are part of a multipolar world order, and their mutual interests are, quote, strong and rising. So the Saudis are playing both sides of this, right? They don't want to give up, their sort of alliance with the U.S., but they see the weakness, and they see the weakness coming from our president, but they also see the weakness in terms of the attempted destruction of their own economy. All of this green nonsense that's being pushed in the U.S. and with the other G7 countries, it threatens their livelihood. So, of course, they're going to hedge their bets. China is the largest net importer of oil. And on a per capita basis, they use a fraction of what we do here in the U.S. So there's an opportunity for growth.
Well, that's because some people have electricity and most people have nothing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, they are trying to say, we're going to, yes, we're the ones who said you could have the petrodollar, and we are the ones who've been plowing our profits back into the treasury, and you allowed us to do that and hid that fact. But, now you don't really look as strong as you used to. So we're going to hedge our bets, and we don't really think you're going to do anything about it. And this has not only economic implications, Glenn, but obviously military implications as well, because one of the things that we provided the Saudis for allowing the petrodollar and plowing their dollars back into treasuries is we said, okay, well, we'll help you out militarily. Well, guess who's knocking on that door right now? That is China.
Oh, yeah. So somebody asked me the other day, when do you think this happened? And I said, nobody can predict this. I mean, this could literally happen. Today's Thursday. Monday, you could wake up and the banks would all be closed and we would be in a dire situation because, I don't know, we went to Russia went to war with Russia overnight. Any big shock could trigger this. And we might have big shocks that come and go and we're just kind of coasting there. We have no idea. But what people have to really understand is when it happens, life as you know it in America is completely different, correct?
Yeah, I think I think we've talked about this before, sort of coming to grips with the reality. You don't want to be in that situation and just be processing that information if and when it happens. You want to be prepared for it and say, okay, I've gotten past the shock already. I've kind of expected this day might come. And hey, I have a plan in place because I know that there's going to be chaos. You started the segment with Bretton Woods. Once that Bretton Woods agreement was signed, it was something like 15 years that it took to change out the global financial order in a way that everything was sort of smoothly operating and the U.S. was fully in that pole position. It didn't just happen one day to the next. And there is chaos in these transition periods. And sometimes there are transition periods before there's a wholesale change. So you may have these kind of interim periods of chaos. And certainly we've seen that domestically in things like with the banking crises and the Great Recession financial crisis and the like. But there could be sort of an international chaotic period. And that's why you really do need to have the diversification in your portfolio, as well as that personal plan. What are you doing in your personal life and in your community to make sure if something goes awry and there is this chaos, what are you going to do to make it through that period? Because again, this doesn't mean the dollar is going away. It doesn't mean that the entire U.S. economy collapses forever. It just means that the stakes are shifting and everybody is telegraphing this. This is one thing I noted in your upcoming book, Dark Future, that I talked about also in You Will Own Nothing, is that the White House has telegraphed this. Joe Biden has said there is a new world order coming and, quote unquote, we have to lead it. Now, of course, he was talking to elite business people, so I'm assuming that means him and his friends. But this is not a conspiracy at all. This is, you type in Joe Biden, New World Order into Google, you will get tons of search results. They all know this is coming.
And you will get from that same speech, as I have it in my book, you take the phrases that are in his speech, you type them out, and you have Western leaders and World Economic Forum leaders using exactly the same verbiage. So they're all aware of something, but you're not, because media won't report on it. And anybody who does report on it will say it's a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy theorist. It's not. They're all saying it.
And you have to say to yourself, okay, if the elite and wealthy people in this world know that the global financial stakes are shifting, are they just going to sit back and hope it works out for them? Of course not. They are going to do everything in their power to make sure that they are molding it and controlling it to whatever standpoint they can, and to make sure they and their cronies come out on top. And that's where we take, again, the conspiracy element out of it. It's not so much that they intentionally want to keep you down; they just want to keep themselves up, and they don't care what happens to you. And if you are at their expense, then so be it. And that's really the takeaway. And that's why you need to prepare and make sure that you do the things so that you can manage through these chaotic periods and do everything you can so that you own as much as possible and will actually be happy, not the you will own nothing and be happy.
Carol Roth from carolroth.com. If you go to carolroth.com/Glenn, you can find out more of her work. And follow her. She's really, really good. She writes for The Blaze, among other places. And she has written a new book called You Will Own Nothing. It's going to release July 18th. You can find it at carolroth.com, or you can go to Amazon. I will tell you, when you buy my book or buy her book, it usually is these people who bought this book also bought that one. They go hand in hand. Mine is Dark Future. It is coming out a week before hers. Mine is a much more of a how this is all made to control and what their plan really is. Carol is so much better than I am of taking all of those plans and saying, here's what you need to know to do. This is how you can save yourself. It's a fantastic book. You can get it wherever books are sold. Again, it is You Will Own Nothing by Carol Roth. And my book at the same time, Dark Future. Same topic. Not a lot of, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, not a lot of the same information, just presented in different ways. One to warn, one to say, here's how you protect yourself. And Carol is great. Thank you so much, Carol. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And by the way, Glenn, thank you so much. You were the #1 endorsement on the back of the book. I so appreciate it.
Would you send me a copy? I know I got a digital.
We sent it to you. We sent it to you. So you should have it any day. This is an early release copy because Glenn was so instrumental. You were the first person that I emailed, and I said, this is what I'm thinking. And you pushed me to go deep and connect all these dots. So I am just so grateful to you, and so grateful for Dark Future and those being companion pieces
thank
together.
You. Carol, thank you. God bless.